Uh, Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wild Enrichment podcast. My name is Kyle, and I'll be your host today. Today, we're doing another interview podcast, and today we're joined with Christoph Isbarn. I probably messed that name up. I only speak English, and Chris is actually from Germany, and he owns the company Widukind Enrichment. So he has a really cool company and a really cool Instagram page that we will talk about later. A whole website behind the company where he builds natural enrichment for a variety of different animals, predominantly out of wood. Really, really cool designs. So we've been in contact for a little while now. So I just figured we could sit down and have a chat here. So hi, Chris, and welcome to the Wild Enrichment podcast.
Hi, Kyle. Thank you very much. Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for the interview, right? So
yeah, no problem. So we actually started talking around 2 years ago. We actually both started our companies pages at very similar times. I think Instagram. I can't remember if Instagram suggested your page to me or I was searching. And we're basically, you have a very, very similar name to me, but it actually, since you are from Germany, it doesn't actually, mean the same thing. Can you explain a little bit behind that and maybe the proper pronunciation in case I didn't get it right there?
No problem. Of course I can do. So it's like Widukind Enrichments. The name behind Widukind is an old Germanic word. And it consists of different other words, so old words, like really, really old words from Germany. So it's like wood, it consists of child and of nature in the end. So because I choose that name because it really is what I like to transport in my enrichment, because they are natural enrichments. So it's like wood, nature, child into it. So that's why I use this name. And and you're right. We met, I guess, 2 years ago on the internet, and I saw your website as well and what you are doing, and it was really similar like what I'm doing, and it was so nice to find someone else far away from Germany.
Yeah.
Cool,
yeah, no, it's a cool kind of little community that like I've talked to a lot of the people that kind of do similar things or do online training and in online enrichment. It's been really cool to kind of meet people like yourself. I think you have a very unique page as far as your designs and the way you approach things. So it's really cool to be able to talk, and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time online. So it's really cool to finally be talking somewhat face to face. Hopefully, maybe when coronavirus ends, we'll actually be able to cross paths at a conference or something like that in the future. But
I come over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. There's always good things happening in Toronto here. So so let's kind of start a little bit about yourself. Can you give us kind of a background and how did you get into the industry and the zoo industry in general?
Yeah, of course. So maybe at first, I'm not a zookeeper, so it's not my education or it's not what I've learned. So, and to be honest, I'm not even a professional zoo person. So I more into nature, like I'm doing canoe trips with people. That is what my profession is, and doing outside stuff. And I was getting into it because I was always a big zoo fan. I was always interested in animals' behavior and wildlife and in nature. And a good friend of mine is a curator in a zoo, so in Berlin. So, and one time he asked me, "Hey Chris, you're always doing nice things made of wood," because I did my own canoe some years ago. I built it of wood. So, and then he asked me, "Okay, do you have maybe an idea? I need something for my animals. So do you have any cool idea what I can build for?" And then I asked him, okay, or I answered him, no problem. I can go in my mind and check something out, what we can do. He explained me a little bit about the animal and what it needs to have to be done for it. So, and then I just made some sketches, showed to him, and then he's fine. Okay, let's try it. And I built that. So, and then it was fine. So this was a little bit like how I get into that business. because otherwise, I guess without him, I would never had any chance to get into that, because you need to have test all your of course. So yeah, and this was a little bit the story behind. And then I decided, hey, this is totally cool. I like that. I like how the animals get enriched by my things. So I asked my dad, come on, Dad, you're good in carpentry. Can we maybe do some kind of a little company or a little half-side company, not the main business, but just maybe we can do something. And I asked him, and my dad is 68 years old now, so he had a lot of time.
Yeah.
And yeah, we decided to do it. And then I founded Widukind Enrichments, founded 3 years ago. And we are doing our enrichments in our own workshop in Berlin, here in Germany. And yeah, that was a little bit the story behind it. And then I started to get more in contact with other zoos and ask them if they're interested in enrichments or what they're doing. Are they doing enrich? Do they enrich anyhow the animals? And then we get into chatted to each other, and yeah, so
Wow.
it grew.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that you're not actually from the zoo industry. I didn't actually know that. Yeah, that's really so. In your day job, do you usually build? Are you like, do you do carpentry in your day job, or is most of the carpentry kind of coming from your father?
It's more like a hobby for me, I do not in a day job. It's more like when I have free time, I do a lot of things. I help my father, whatever, when he needs help, and he teaches me something as well. So it's more like a situation where when I just get into it, okay, why can I just build more of these things by my own? And then sometimes I ask him if he has any good ideas to do it. But yeah, right. It's not my main profession. So it's like
Wow.
more.
Yeah.
I floated into it.
Yeah, that's really cool to see. Enrichment. Somebody actually understanding enrichment from the outside, because it can be a concept that's hard to explain to people on the inside of the industry. So that's really cool to kind of. Have you always had an interest in zoos in particular, or?
Yes, definitely. I was a big fan always, all the time. And besides of zoos, I was interested in animals, in animals far over the world. So that's why I like to go to the zoo, because of course you can get in contact with these animals if you cannot see them in wildlife or wherever, because it's far away.
Yeah.
Then you go to but I was wondering, yeah, when I go to the zoo and I see some enrichments, which doesn't look that natural. It's like you go in a zoo and it's a modern zoo, and modern zoos are well equipped and have wonderful areas, and everything looks really authentic, really nature style. And then I saw, okay, why are there plastic inside? Why is there a big red or yellow or whatever ball inside? It doesn't match for me, for my eyes, when I see that. And then there comes a time, okay, is it possible to do it like more authentic or more matching to the area? So yeah, that was always my in my mind when I went.
That's interesting, because I know when I've always been really interested in zoos, and I grew up on a farm with horses and kind of been surrounded by animal care in general, but I don't think I ever made the connection. I feel like when you're actually in the industry and you're understanding different things about the exhibits, like shifting areas and enrichment and feeding areas and different things like that, you kind of you're looking for those things, so you notice them. But I'm not sure if I actually really noticed the enrichment that the animal was getting before I was in the industry, before I actually kind of knew what that was, what that was even supposed to be doing, or why people were putting that there. So that's interesting that you made that connection. Was there any animals in particular that you that crossed over between what you were seeing in the wild and what you were interested in nature, and kind of that made your interest in the zoo more, or do you just love animals in general?
I would say I love animals in general, but I'm really into bears.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
But
Yeah.
there's a story behind it. So maybe if you ask me what's my favorite enrichment for what I ever build or whatever I think about, it's
Yeah.
always for bears because I'm just in love with their animals, their behavior, their intelligence, everything. So I saw my first bear in the wildlife on a canoe trip in Canada, by the way, some
Oh,
years
cool.
ago. Me and my dad did a canoe trip starting in Whitehorse.
Oh,
So
wow. That's
I
amazing.
guess all of your listeners know where Whitehorse is. Maybe in Europe, not everyone, but
Yeah.
so it's nearby the Yukon River. So and one day on our trip, we saw a black bear walk by, and we saw it from our canoe, not far away from us, between the trees by the shore, and that was amazing. So I fell in love. So and furthermore, enrichments for bears are very challenging because they need to
Yeah.
be safe and resistant. And some of our first prototypes were broke up very quickly, which was really disappointing because we had been building it for a long time. But yeah, it's a bear enrichment, so it needs to be really heavy and needs to be really resistant. So yeah, so I guess the bear is one of my favorite animal, any kind of bear.
Yeah. No, that they're really amazing. They really,
Yeah.
and yeah, they are very, very challenging to develop enrichment for because it's easy to build enrichment for a lot of the smaller animals, like because you don't really need to worry about, you know, upwards of 1,000 pounds crushing your enrichment item that you've just spent so long
Yes.
building. So how did you go about, testing your prototypes and finding out? It's
Yeah.
because usually that's if you're in the industry, you just build you can kind of adapt on a daily basis. But how did you go about finding what's actually bear resistant?
Yeah. In the end, of course, it's always necessary to test it in the enclosure, of course. So, but before we do a lot of heavy tests by, yeah, like I'm playing like a bear, I do like I'm a bear. And what would I do if I have a big barrel and I think at the bear there's a big treasure for me inside? So what would I
Yeah.
do? I crack it up and I will scratch it and deep dive in it and whatever. So try to do a lot of strength for that to test it before, and then I can see if maybe if it can takes me, it doesn't mean that it can take the bear.
Yeah.
But it's a good pre-test. And then some kind of, or in the end, it's like when you need to bring it in the enclosure and then you see it. So when then you see the bear cracks it up in 2 minutes, and then maybe you understand how and why is that happen. So and
Right.
then you adjust it. You get it after the bear's gone backstage again, then you can bring back your idea, rebuild it or do some little attachments or whatever so that it could work then,
Right.
like add-ons or whatever. But it's always a test, and it's always, if I do an enrichment, I always say to zookeepers, okay, it's like a prototype, we need to
Hmm.
test. And if it's not does not fit good, or if the bear cannot work with that, then we need to adjust it. That's fine for
Yeah.
everyone because it's always a big test.
Yeah. That's interesting because I think as a company, you're approaching the enrichment items in the right way. You're approaching it a lot. Like a lot of the times, people forget that enrichment items need to be constantly assessed and really, ask yourself: is this still enriching for the animal? Is this optimal for the animal? And as a company, you have to deliver a product that you think is perfect for the animal, is the right level of enriching, and has a lot of those aspects that people really need to be critical about and asking themselves about. So that's really interesting that you're taking kind of that approach right off the bat, because I think that's a huge problem that people run into with enrichment.
Yes, it is. Mhm.
Yeah. So what is what you have quite a few items that you build. What's your favorite? What's your favorite item to build, and what's your the kind of embodiment of your company you think?
Mm. So I guess one of my personal favorite enrichment is the beehive, which is for bears as well, for any kind of bears. It's like it consists of several tree grades and a steel rod, so they can the grades can be slided up and down vertically by the bear. So the bear can browse the tree grades as if it were searching through a beehive in the nature.
Right.
And this is really interesting because I want to a little bit like a copy the nature thing into a zoo an enclosure, you know. That's important for me. So I mean, our bear house looks really good, and it matches in a natural design enclosure. So which is really, really important, I think, that the enrichment matches to the enclosure or in the enclosure, the authentic atmosphere of the zoo. It's not easy to explain. It's like more a feeling when I walk through a zoo and a theater and I see some really cool items or some really cool areas where the animals are living, and then I think, okay, but what is missing? Missing is some kind of good natural enrichment. So that's why I like it the most, maybe.
Right. So how do you come up with enrichment ideas? Are you generally like targeting a specific behavior that you're seeing in the wild? Are you targeting are you just trying a bunch of different things and kind of seeing what sticks, or what's your process look like usually?
Yeah, it looks like that I'm trying to learn and understand how animals in the wild uses their senses and skills to influence their nature, where they are living. So which senses do I have to address to make the enrichment interesting for the animals? So, and I'm also using my contacts to zookeepers in Germany or in other countries like the UK to find out what their zoo animals react well or badly to. Because of course every animal has its own personality, like we as humans have. So you cannot do enrichment and think that all animals of the same species will use it the same way or react the same way. And of course I do a lot of research in the internet, and we do prototypes and testing, as I said, a lot before we bring it to the zoo. For example, our current project is for big cats like tiger or lions, so it needs to be tested very good because of the big carnivores' strengths like a tiger or lion.
Yeah, absolutely.
To one hand, the enrichment has to withstand the strength of the tiger, and on the other hand, it needs to be safe so it cannot hurt the animal, which is an important fact, of course, by the well as well. So yeah, maybe this is this is the idea pool, how I get my ideas, and
I think that's important too, because I think a lot of people struggle coming up with natural based enrichment ideas, and they come at the enrichment challenges more as how can I just get a reaction out of this animal. And I think it's really important to really focus on specific natural behaviors, because those behaviors are going to be the ones that are going to be inclined to do often. It's not just those are the ones that they're happy doing, and those are the ones that often have been proven that when they can't do them, that's when they develop a lot of like stereotypies and adverse behaviors, because they're not able to do those natural behaviors. So that's really an important thing to be thinking about when and looking at their habitat too, which is something that isn't really talked about too much. Actually going out, and not just looking at the natural behaviors of the animal, looking at their habitat and what could they be interacting with that might not necessarily be super well known, or trying to imitate a beehive and stuff like that is fantastic. That's really cool. So do you think that you would ever build something that maybe isn't like specifically like looking natural? Like, would you ever, but it's good at bringing out a natural behavior in an animal? Or do you think, or you're kind of sticking with a natural looking enrichment?
I think some items need to be have to be some kind of form, like a rectangle or something, because it's easy to clean or it's easy to open for the zookeepers. Because a good enrichment is not only a good enrichment for the animals, it's always need to be good enrichment for the zookeeper as well.
Yeah.
In kind, how do I clean it? How can I set it up? Is it easy to set up? Is it simple to dismantle it? As you are a zookeeper, you know that in the whole day you have a lot of activities, and enrichment is only one part of your activity.
Yeah,
so you have not like me the whole day time to think about enrichment because I have other things to do as well. So the job has to be done. So that means enrichment must be maybe simple sometime and effective, but the best enrichment is if it's possible if it takes a long time for the animal to browse through or to enrich the animal, so that the animal have a lot time to do with that, like to handle it, the enrichment, you know what I mean? So like it's important. And on the other hand, it needs to be handled easily for the zookeeper as well. Because if you have very heavy enrichment, which you need for zookeepers to implement it in the enclosure, maybe then it's not a good idea, because you need to bring it down and bring it back, and you have to take a lot of time for it. So there's always decision when I'm planning an enrichment, does it work good for the zookeeper as well?
Right.
Because
Yeah. Focusing on if it's functional in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of facilities, they kind of limit themselves. A lot of facilities that I know of, they have very strict policies on kind of natural enrichment. Everything needs to look, like a log, like a rock, like something that you wouldn't even notice that it's there necessarily. And I think that's very, very limiting, because